Hello guys, today we will play 5 on 5 Blitz. In this game, I'm playing as black, he plays e4, and I will play an opening which I didn't play in my past videos, which is the Caro-Kann defense, c6 and d5. He plays the advanced variation, and I will play bishop to f5. Now there is a line where after h4, I cannot play e6 because he just plays g4, I retreat, and he traps my bishop. Well, it's not completely trapped. I could go to e4, but then he just plays f3, and then my bishop is trapped. But that line is not played. I believe it's called the tall variation. But anyways, he plays f4, and now I will play e6. My future moves are knight d7 and c5. And maybe I could develop my knight here, like that. Now he offers a bishop trade, which I'm not certain if I should take, but I will take. Now if he takes with his queen, I play the move c4, and if he does not take my pawn, I could just play around the pawn, or I can even play c4. Now in my future moves, I could develop my knight to e7, and then g6. I could develop my bishop here to g7. I have lots of moves and variations I could play. I could play queen to b6, targeting this pawn, where if the bishop moves, okay, he plays knight to f3. Now I could play knight c6 or c4. I will play knight to c6, adding more pressure to this pawn, and my future moves, if he plays, let's say, bishop to e3, I will go queen to b5, targeting his b2 pawn. And let's say if he castles, okay, he plays b3, he probably wants to play bishop to b2, and he wants to prevent c4, which is okay. I will now give a check on a5, and if the bishop moves, my queen will probably go back to b6. And yeah, that's the whole point of this check. And if he moves either of his knights, if he plays knight b to d2, I will just castle queenside or play knight to e7. Both of those moves make sense. And yeah, that's basically it. He plays bishop to d2, like I said. Now I will retreat with my queen, and instead of going to b2, I forced the bishop to go to d2. Now it does not have any target, and if it went to b2, he could have just taken, and his bishop would have gotten powerful. Now he plays a3. I don't know the purpose of this move. Maybe he wants to play b4, but that doesn't make any sense. Anyways, I will continue with my plan to play knight e7, knight g6 to target this pawn, and that's basically it. And I will go queenside castle. I could create an attack if he ever castles kingside with my h and g pawns. I could play g6, bishop g7, and that's basically it for this position. Okay, knight c3. That puts pressure on my pawn and threatens to go knight a4. And how do I stop knight a4? I'm not really sure. Like, I could take this pawn, and then if he takes, I could take back, which looks good for me, actually. I just realized, which I'm going to do that right now. And if he moves his knight to a4, I could, okay, I will maybe offer a queen trade. I could go queen to a6, but then he could go knight c5, which I think is good for him. Yeah, well, I could go. No, I can't go there. Actually, I'm offering a queen trade because if he takes and I take, yes, my pawns are doubled, but then I have an open b file for my rook, and the queen has no good square to move. Like, let's say it goes to. Actually, the queen cannot move forward, but yeah, it cannot. It's forced to one of these two squares or to take my queen. And once he does that, I could just play g6, I could play bishop g7, I could bring my knight to f5, which is a good spot for my queen, and he takes, which is a good move. Now, moves that make sense for him are knight c5. That targets my weakness, but that isn't really a big weakness. It's just a pawn that's weak. But now I could play knight to f5, preventing knight c5 attacking my weakness. Now you might be wondering, how does that prevent it? It's because my bishop opens up. And now my knight is on a very good square. Maybe if this bishop moves, let's say here, if he wants to reroute his bishop, he goes bishop to e1. I will go knight e3. And that's basically it. I will play bishop e7, kingside castle, and that's it. Rook to d1. That probably he wants to defend his bishop, but his bishop is not being attacked. And that rook used to guard this pawn, which I will take it because the rook used to guard it, but now it went to d1, and I could just take it with no worries. And if he plays b4, that does not trap my bishop because I could just go bishop. Because I could go bishop b2, or I could just take it. And now he plays g4. g4 is a very aggressive move because you're not supposed to push pawns in front of your king, but I think his logic is that I don't have any pieces to attack him with, so it's good for him to start creating an attack because my king is still in the center. But like I said, I will just move to e3. He takes, I take, and now I do have a passed pawn, but he could just try to get it, and it's not very easy to defend. I could go d4. I could go rook d8 or other moves. Okay. Now if I play d4, knight takes, and then knight takes, rook takes, and yeah, I'm forced to give this pawn away because I have no place for it. And if I play e2, he will take and nothing too much. I will play bishop to b4, and if he takes my pawn, well, then I could castle. Castling is the best move, I think. and I will play rook a d8, rook a c8. Okay, he offers a knight trade, and I will take because I am up a pawn. And okay, well, he takes with this rook, which is good. And I was thinking I could go bishop c5, but then he will take it with his knight. Now I could play many moves. One of them is to e7. One of them is rook a b8, which I think is a good move. And I don't just move my bishop, I bring my rook. Okay, he plays c3. He does not like my bishop standing on b4, so I will retreat it to e7. Now he plays b4. He probably wants to push pawns, and yeah. Now if I play a5, he takes. I give this check. Let's say the king moves there. That's not a big. Actually, well, no, it's not a very good idea because I just lose a pawn. Instead, I could target this pawn, and maybe in some positions I could go a5. I could sacrifice my bishop because if I sacrifice my bishop, he takes, and if I have some tactics, I could back rank checkmate him. But now there are no tactics, so there's no point of sacrificing material. I play rook c8 to target this pawn if the rook moves. And it's always a good idea to, in an endgame where there is a queen or rook or that type of piece, to push a pawn in front of your king 1 or 2 squares, so your king has an escape square if so there is no back rank checkmate. Now my opponent plays a very good move, knight c5. Basically, he's trying to target my weakness. Now I'm forced to take. He takes back, and I could give this check. I could take this pawn, and I think giving this check should be good. Now if he goes to f2, I will take this pawn on c5, and then I could play h6 and push this passed pawn. Since these pawns are doubled, they're not as good as connected passed pawns, but it's okay. Well, he plays f5, e takes f5, and he will probably take back, which he does not take back. I don't know why. He pushes. Now, I will play g6, like I said, so there is no back rank mate. He plays e6, I will take, and if this rook takes, I will take with this rook, and yeah, wherever the king moves, let's say it goes to f4, I could give a check like that. Well, now if I give a check on b2, he defends with his rook, and then I take, he takes, and I think that should be good for me because I have a 4-point material advantage, which is basically 4 pawns. He has 2 on 3, okay, which is a queen side majority. Now I will push this pawn and give a check, winning this pawn. Now he takes my pawn over here. I have many options. I will try to win time and give checks. Now I'm going to target his weakness. Now if he gives checks with me, like if he gives checks on the 7th and 8th rank, that's not a big problem because I just escape. And now I think he wants to try to come and checkmate me, which I'm not very happy. So I'm going to play rook e3, cutting this king, escape. Okay. Now, if he just keeps on giving me checks on the 7th and 8th rank, I'm just going to escape diagonally until I reach his rook. Okay, a very good move by him. He's trying to target my weakness, but I think I could just go king g7. Yeah, that guards my pawn and attacks his rook. And I'm just going to give a check. And okay, I'm just trying to win time here. Give another check. Give this check. And I'm going to go target his weakness. I just gained some time. And now it's time for me to take this and push my 3 connected passed pawns. Now, wherever this king moves, it's going to be a discovered check, not here, but wherever to these squares the king moves, it's going to be a discovered check. That's not very scary because I just moved my king. I will push my pawn. Now, he will probably play rook c2. He plays rook c1, which is okay. Okay. I will give this check on f5. I will bring my king, and now I will push my other h pawn. I'm just going to push it and all the way to h1. Now, since the rook right here, okay, he resigned. Since the rook moved from f1, that allows me to go queen f1, queen pawn to f1 equals queen. He takes, and my future moves would have been taking. And it's very easy to win a position like this because of ladder mate. Now I could just promote to a rook to be disrespectful, which is very funny. And ladder mate is basically like this. Let's say the king moves to c4, like so. You cut the king from from two files. Anyways, I had 2 mistakes, 2 blunders, and 0 missed wins. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, then please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.